Finding the right web designer for your website is a lot like marriage. Find the right one and you'll keep coming back for more. Find the wrong one and you'll be looking to file for divorce very, very quickly. So I thought I'd make a video to show you what you need to look for in a web designer and to watch out for certain red flags so that you don't wind up running for the hills as soon as you sign that contract. So the first thing that you need to look for is, does the web designer's aesthetic match your own? What I mean by this is, if your style is like elegant and feminine, you want to find a designer who has experience and whose aesthetic reflects that elegant feminine style. Because if you find a web designer and all the pieces in his portfolio or her portfolio are nothing but bold and flashy and edgy and modern and loud, it's not that they won't be able to complete your project, they won't be able to get that deep understanding of your style and your vibe the way you do, the way somebody who leans towards elegant and feminine design would, for example. The next thing you want to watch out for is what type of files will you receive at the end. Some designers prefer to work with Illustrator and some prefer to work with Photoshop. But regardless of that, you want to know that you will be receiving the end files, the source files for all the graphics and design elements that go into making your website. So you want to be sure that you receive the files that end in AI or PSD or INDD extension, because that shows you that, okay, so this is somebody who uses Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, and it would be best if I used Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign to open those types of files. There are other software out there that, for example, can open up a Photoshop file, but sometimes it can happen that they will flatten certain layers, in which case you won't be able to edit them, and that's not good. If they use a different type of format, file format such as an SVG or an EPS, that can be opened with Illustrator, and it can probably be opened with other software such as I don't know, like Quark or Affinity Designer, or what's another one? Sketch, I think, can open those types of files. Either or, you want to know which type of files you're receiving, and if you're not sure about the format, just ask them what software they use, because using the same type of software will guarantee that there are no conflicts with the type files and that you will be able to edit whatever you need to edit. Another reason why you want to receive source files is so that you can, well, edit them, because if you have like a template that a designer made for you that you're going to use in a blog post, then you want to be able to edit that template so that you can use it for the next post and the next post and the next post. If you don't have the software and all you receive is a JPEG or a PNG, you won't be able to edit them. If you are absolutely against the idea of using something like Photoshop or Illustrator or Affinity Designer because it's too complicated for you, that's perfectly fine. Ask your designer if they would be willing to, for example, create a template for you in Canva, which is easier to use, and many solopreneurs and entrepreneurs prefer using it. Next, you want to find a designer who will provide a certain number of revisions for your project. If the designer is not willing to provide that, then chances are you won't be happy with your design, and by not being happy, I mean you won't be 100% happy. They may get you like 70%, and they may get the design that you want and the look and feel you're going for, about 75% there, but if there's that one little thing that you want changed, without revisions, they won't change it for you. So you want to make sure that at least 1 or 2 or 3 rounds of revisions are included in the price, and you want to know how those revisions play out. Do you provide feedback all at once? Do you provide feedback in design phases? I know designers who like to get a revision round after each design stage is completed. I know designers who like to get revision once everything is done and they get their vision out there, and then they submit everything to you for feedback, and you go literally, okay, so I don't like this, and that in this part. I don't like that. I want this to be different. So you want to talk to them and you want to see how the revision process goes and how many you're entitled to. Next, you need to know if your designer is willing to provide you support after the design process is complete, and if you need help down the road. So if you want like simple changes to your design 3 months or 6 months down the line, for example, you need to change your services page, or you want to freshen up your about page, can you go back to your designer to do that? Will they provide training that shows you how you can do it? So stuff like that, you want somebody who will be there for you in the long run, because if you have to find a new designer every time you need something done to your website and you don't have the time, the patience, or the will to do it yourself, that's going to be a little time consuming, not to mention a pain in the ass. Next up, you need to know if the designer has an established design process in place and if they have a contract for you to sign. Without a design process in place, so without a designer who knows exactly what happens at each stage of your design, chances are they won't get you, it's going to be messy for you and for them, because you won't know what's going on with your project, and then you're going to be constantly asking them and bugging them and being like, what's going on, what's happening, can I do something, do I need to do something, or when am I supposed to do what? And if they don't have a design in place, I mean, there are certain things that need to happen before the actual design takes place. Like you need to have your content and your photos ready to go. You also need to provide feedback at a certain stage of the design process, and if that's not established, then both you and the designer will be lost and it'll just be a big mess. And speaking of contract is there to protect not only the designer but also you as the client, and it's also there to outline what the designer is responsible for as well as what you're responsible for. And without that contract, both your ass and my ass are on the line, and you don't want that. You want something that protects us both, so that in the event the worst happens and you need to sue me or I need to sue you, we have something to fall back on, so to speak. However, that's not going to happen, because with the contract in place, 95% of the lawsuits can be avoided, and there's no need to fear them. Finally, you need to watch out for signs of other happy clients, testimonials, places where they've been featured, something that speaks about their expertise. That's not to say that somebody who's fresh out of design school is not capable of designing you a good website, because let's face it, we all have to start somewhere. It's just once you see that a designer has a few clients behind their back, so to speak, a few websites under their belt, you know that they have already established how they work, who they like working with, and they have this under their, it's easier for them to get a website out. They know what they need from you. They have experience in this, and the project will go more smoothly if the designer already is experienced and has clients who can vouch for their expertise. Okay, so now that we covered what to look for in a web designer, there are also some red flags that can tell you, hey, you know what, you might want to think this twice before signing the contract and, getting yourself into that situation. So the first thing you need to watch out for is vague answers. Basically, you want to ask your web designer a lot of questions, and I have a checklist that gives you the questions that you should be asking your web designer. And if they don't have answers that they can willingly give you or at the drop of a hat, you want to run for the hills, basically, because that means they themselves have no clue what they're supposed to be doing. And if that's the case, run. Next, if they have no timeline, no cancellation policy, no deadlines, nothing set in stone, if they're like all casual about it, well, without a deadline, how do you know when your project will be complete? Because if you need the website to launch on a specific date, without a deadline, your website may not launch until well past that deadline, and you will be putting everything on hold, basically, because your website's not done. If they have no cancellation policy, that means you're stuck with them, either stuck with them until they finish your project, Or you cancel, and then God knows what else will happen. Will you have to pay a cancellation fee? Will they hold your files without giving them back to you so that you have to literally start from scratch? Just avoid that. If they don't have a cancellation policy in place, go find a designer that does, because no designer who cares about themselves and about their reputation is going to force you to stay with them or risk getting your wrath on, so to speak, just so they can, I don't know, say that they completed your project. It just doesn't make sense. If they have no contract or no terms and conditions that you can fall back onto, I already covered that when I was speaking about contracts earlier, but just to repeat this one more time, without a contract, your ass is on the line as much as mine. So let's just avoid that. Let's get that thing signed and let's protect both ourselves. Then you want to watch out for scope creep. Scope creep is basically when you say, okay, I want a website, and then you agree with the designer that they're going to make you a website, and then you think, but hey, you know what? I also need a sales page, and I could also probably use a lead magnet, and I probably need social media templates. I'll just ask the designer to do that. Don't do that. First of all, if it's not defined in your contract and you just pile it onto him, you're just giving them more tasks that they need to complete, which slows down the entirety of your process. And if they keep on, okay, if they let you pile this on, that means that basically they have no self-respect. And do you really want to work with somebody who doesn't have self-respect? Next, I hate to say this because as a web designer, I know that working with clients can literally leave me like not updating my website because I don't have time to update my website. And if it's working and if it's converting, then you know what? I'm guilty of it. But here's the thing. If there is a difference between being busy and not having time to update your website, and there is a difference between not updating your website and having it stuck in the 80s, so to speak, because you just don't care about it. And if a website looks poor and outdated and the last project dates back to, I don't know, 2002, you might want to think twice about contacting that particular web designer. First of all, you don't even know if they're still in business. And second of all, if they don't have time to like freshen up their website to at least reflect the design trends, then how can you be sure that they know what your website needs? And there are quite a few things that your website needs today, and I don't mean like the latest flashy graphics and typing animation. I mean, the website needs to be responsive, it needs to load fast, and most importantly, it needs to serve your business goals. That's more important than actual design trends, but keeping it, I mean, let's face it, you don't want flashing GIFs and animating, those, oh my God, the things from the 90s. I'm dating myself here, but oh God, the blinkies? Yeah, you don't want that. So if you come across a web designer that has blinkies on their website, and elements from the 90s, I would think twice about working with them. And lastly, the wrong why. It's just simple as that. If something doesn't jive with you, then you know what? Just don't work with them, because if something's setting you off, and this just does not fly with me, well, there's no reason to work with them. There is no law anywhere that states that you need to sign with that particular designer, even though he gave you the best quote. It's better if you find somebody who you resonate with, because that person will be able to get you and to understand you a hell of a lot better than somebody who you're just not their ideal audience, and you don't want to work with that. So that's basically it. That's what you need to look for in a web designer, and those are the red flags that you need to avoid. And I hope this has been helpful, and if you like this video, please leave me a thumbs up, and I'd appreciate it if you hit subscribe.